Hello and welcome to Life Under Lockdown. Today I'm delighted to welcome on our show an Indian priest who is living in Battersea in London. It's Fr Andrew Ebrahim. Welcome, Father.
Thank you.
So obviously the coronavirus is affecting nations worldwide. What is the situation in where you are just now? You're a Salesian priest and you're teaching in a school. What's the situation there?
Yes, I teach at our school in Battersea, St John Bosco College, and it's very much an inner city school. And so we have students from a wide variety of backgrounds, and a lot of their families would be in, I guess, lower paid jobs. So it really it hits them. And, you know, where we live, we have council flats across the road from us, and a number of our kids would live there. And you look at the size of the flats and the size of the families, and you think, well, you're all stuck together. And then you think, you know, if one of you gets a virus, how do you isolate, you know, in a situation like that? So we have kept the school open. And so for vulnerable children and for children of key workers, they are allowed to come in. They come in at 10 o'clock and we give them a bagel, and I like to pile the Nutella high on that. I'm not sure the dentist would approve of it. And so they have half an hour where we, you know, we'll feed them. Some of them won't have had breakfast at all. But they have no idea of social spacing and or social distancing, and you say you need to keep 2 meters apart. And so in a way that's a kind of education in itself. And then 10:30 we take them up to the computer rooms, because we're doing distance learning with students on I don't know what it's called. Is it an app called Teams? And so for those children who don't have access to the internet or to laptops at home, then they come in school, we get them working on the computers, and they work 3 computers apart from each other, so they've got the distancing, and they work solidly from 10:30 until midday. Then we have an assembly, and Father Sarju, our chaplain, will lead the assembly, and then we give them lunch, and we have various members of staff who volunteer to cook lunch for them. So it's wonderful. We get a whole variety of food, and then in the afternoon they do something fun. It may be art or PE or something like that, and then they get to go home at about 2 o'clock. So it gives them a real focus for the day. For a number of them, it means that we know that they're getting a hot meal. So when we first went into lockdown, I think the first week we were closed completely, and there was a lad waiting at the school car park at 7 in the morning, and the head came in and he said, I've only come in to eat something because I've nothing at home. My family don't have anything at home. And so, you know, in terms of just the basics, it's very important, but also in terms of education, because it's those pupils who don't have access to the internet or laptops who are going to fall behind in their education. And if we don't keep them up to date with that, when we eventually go back, they're going to be way behind the others, particularly if they're in year 10 or 12 at the moment, where we're going through coursework. And then it has a terrible knock-on effect for them.
Yeah.
So,
do you think there's a kind of, you'll know from your students yourself, do you think they are suffering from increased anxiety and worry during this time as well? Have you noticed that amongst them?
Yes, there is. Not so much of the ones that come in. The ones that come in are fairly brave, if you like, and they would be children of key workers or those who are vulnerable. But there will be a number of others who are entitled to come in, but they're too scared to come in. So I remember speaking to a mother over the phone, and she said, my son won't even leave the house because he's petrified, and they have a dog. And so she says, well, you've got to take him for a walk. And her son, even though it's hot, will wear a big parka jacket to go out because he thinks a parka jacket is going to save him from the coronavirus. So I think we'll all be walking around with parka jackets. But they're scared. Some of them are just scared to leave the house.
And what sort of comfort do what do you say as a priest to that? How do you give them pastoral support?
I think you've just got to be very matter of fact. I think you've just got to be very realistic. And we say, you know, you've got to pray. Sorry, I never tell people they've got to, but I say, look, we pray, and I remind them that I pray every day for them daily at Holy Mass, as do the other priests. And we celebrate Holy Mass, Father Sarju and myself, every morning in the chapel. So even though nobody else is there, um, we are praying for our school community, we're praying for our students, we're praying for everyone who's asked. So prayer is very, very important, because we tell them this is beyond, it's beyond us. And the other thing is just to be sensible and, you know, keep that distancing, make sure you're washing your hands, basics like that. So the two go hand in hand, being sensible and prayer. You love this. My mother's friend, she's in her 80s. My mother rang her and she said, oh, how are you getting on? And she said, oh, I'm absolutely fine. And she said, oh, with the coronavirus. And she said, I'm completely protected. My mother said, how are you completely protected? She said, oh, every time I go out, I stick a miraculous medal in my bra. And so,
We're
you
not
know,
advising our viewers to follow suit on that advice.
no. So, I mean, it's helping our young people to see prayer is important, but helping yourself is also important, and the two go hand in hand. And it's not one and it's not the other.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I mean, it is true. Prayer is really important. I think there is a supernatural element to this. You know, apart from the hygiene and the distancing, there is a supernatural response. I think we're seeing a lot of people are, especially in Scotland here. I'm seeing a lot of people are turning back to the question of faith and to the practice of their faith, albeit at home. Do you sense that amongst your community where you are, that there is a increased interest in prayer life during this pandemic?
Yes, we live stream a school mass every Friday, and we get a healthy viewing figures for that. And we get emails from some parents who say, you know, we found that very comforting, or it was lovely to be able to have Holy Mass in our home in that way. And we've also got various students. We just picked them at random, and we've asked them to write prayers during this pandemic, and then we'll put that out as a school, so one a week. So it's wonderful. We've got students who are actually writing their own prayers that we put out on the school website for parents and other students to read and to pray. And none of them have said no. They're all up for it.
Wonderful.
And, you know, we are asking a wide variety of children. I'm not asking those children who would frequent the chapel or the chaplaincy. I would ask our likely rogues as well. And some of the prayers are really very beautiful. And I ask them to get their families involved. So it's not just the student writing the prayer, but, you know, some of them will say, oh, my mother helped me write the prayer, because it's very, very important that, you know, we look after not just the student, but the family as well.
That's wonderful. And obviously, London's been very badly hit by the pandemic. There's a lot of deaths in London, a lot of cases in London. What is, well, compared to where you're from, Kolkata, you do work with the Salesians there. What's the situation there in India?
Oh, it's dire. It's really bad. Lockdown is far more severe. So from that point of view, it's protecting lives. But so many of them have not been able to get to work, and lockdown is so strict. You'll have police on the road, and they'll have sticks and batons. And we raise money for the Salesian Street Children Project in Calcutta. So we raise money to keep them going, and they rescue kids from the streets. They will rescue vulnerable children. The idea initially really is to get those kids home if they can find their homes, and they try and sort out the problem because they think it's best for those kids to be with the family. But where they can't do that, we look after them. Now, the government in India had said to all the homes, I think it was back in March, early March, you need to send the kids homes where they have families, and they did that. Then they went into lockdown. Then a lot of these children, their parents would be rag pickers or they would be cleaners. And so, of course, as soon as lockdown comes into effect, their parents, or if it's a single parent, are unable to work. So they've not got food. So our Salesians in India have been trying to send out food parcels, but they are restricted as to how far they can go. So what we've been doing here is we've done some fundraising, and I've got a few contacts in Calcutta, and what we've done is we've targeted a few families who can't get help from our Salesians in India, and we've managed to arrange food parcels for them. And in one case, there's a lad who was at our home, and he's now, when I say qualified, he's left the home, he's moved on, and it's just him and his sister. His mother was killed in a car accident last year, and he didn't have money to pay his rent. And I found this out from someone else. So we were able to send money out so he could pay rent on his room, so he's not on the streets. So it's doing things like that just to help them to survive lockdown.
Yeah, it's tragic, and hopefully the situation won't get worse. I've heard mixed reports in India. I've heard that in like different states, like Kerala, for example, is very, very minimal effect of the virus compared to
Yes.
here or maybe in other parts of India. So it's not certainly universal across the continent there, but again, we'll have to wait and see what happens. Hopefully it won't, spread as widely as it has been, because India is such a big country,
Yeah.
But as long as your community and yourself are keeping well, Father, that's really important, and we'll continue to pray. And we'll ask everyone who's watching this and your viewers to continue to pray for your community and Salesians and even the Indians as well.
Please do. And also pray for the Salesians in Bethlehem, because they have a bakery there. They are providing bread free of charge to a lot of the Palestinian families, to young people, to elderly, to those who've lost their jobs over there. So they've also asked for our prayers.
Yeah, I think that's something that's quite important to mention. I didn't actually know you're involved with or had contact with the Holy Land situation. That's pretty bad as well. Particularly grave in that area is very poor. So that's a worry for us all. So yeah, absolutely, we'll keep them in your prayers. So thanks for your time, Father. That's really a nice insight into an inner city school in London, and also the situation in the street in India as well. So, and the Holy Land. So we really appreciate your time, and God bless the good work that you're doing with the children there in London.
Thank you, and we'll keep your wonderful mission in our prayers too.
Thank you, Father. God bless.